gun. Really cool. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I'll do is be the coolest cat here, but I'll need some more super breed. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you. Just watch me, mouse. Just watch me catch you, catch you, catch you. All I wanna do is impress you with my mouse trap. All I wanna do is convince you with my cheese. All I wanna do is be the coolest cat here, but I'll need some more super breed. Oh, but I need some more super breed. Oh, but I need some more super breed.
Hello, MouseHunt. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Today is, I do not know what day it is. It is November 19. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Dave, hope everybody in the chat is doing well today. Thank you for joining me. Hello. Hockey Master, Pokefleek. Devil Volcano says, wow, this song is great. Glad to hear you rock it out there at the start. Hello, Jason, JP, Diamond. Hello to you. Lady Nutsy, good morning to you, as well as Salim, good morning. Kaiser, hello. Ben. Josh, what's up? Dave, not much. Hopefully you're doing well today. Well, today, Lunar New Year is the event coming in the new year, after the Great Winter Hunt, that is. And so we've been putting that together. We're just ramping up, getting ready to start development and art on the Lunar New Year event. And so I thought it would be a good time to touch base, kind of get some sentiments, a little bit of feedback, suggestions even, you may have noticed, kind of putting out some feelers in Facebook groups, Discord as well. We're out kind of collecting some feedback. And so I've been consolidating that, making some decisions. Thought we'd wrap things up with Feedback Friday as well. Hello, KDM to you. Catalyst Star, good evening. Well, good evening to you as well. Chris is getting ready for plus 500 luck and Lunar New Year, eh? Throw an extra 0 on the back of that. Well, I think it'll still be 50 luck. But with that, that's a good segue into Lunar New Year here. So what we're getting here is probably the most significant change right off the bat that we're thinking about making here is doing away with having to capture the Zodiac mice in order to earn the lantern to start raising it. Start getting your double and triple loot drops. Start getting that luck bonus going. Just over the years, that has not been particularly fun. In fact, it kind of feels like it's in the way. We draw some comparisons to the spring egg hunt and having to earn your excavator versus going out and doing the fun part of actually finding the eggs. And so there's some parallels there, and that kind of has us leaning towards doing away with that phase. Instead, you show up and you can claim your lantern right away, kind of an acknowledgement of, yes, I'm ready to start the event, I'm here. A little celebratory moment as you get your lantern for the year, and you can just begin collecting candles right away. Start raising it. Shay says, yes, please get rid of that. Yeah, it was interesting. I think kind of revelation as we were chatting back and forth on this was, for a lot of events and a lot of content, a lot of adventures, mice are the special part. They're the main focus. If you can take Halloween being the most recent event as an example, Baba Gaga is kind of the finale. She's the focal point of everything. Everything leads up to her encounter, and there's lots of rewards and items to be had around it. But still, at the core of the event, the mice were sort of the special part. With Lunar New Year, I think we've come to the realization that the mice are actually a supporting cast, and the lead role is the lantern. And so I think over years it was instinct to try to make the mice the special part, but maybe that's a little bit backwards, and instead we have to play into the role they serve in the event. Is that really they are the supporting role. They are where you get your candles so that you can raise the lantern. The lantern has the lead role, if I can stretch a movie metaphor to its absolute limit there. Chris says that's a great change. Lunar New Year is just a mad rush. OP event would be great just to get right into the madness. Yeah, exactly. And kind of, I think it's naturally some frustrating feeling as well when you just kind of want to get your lantern going and you don't have a lot of agency. It's not a very interesting journey in order to get the lantern. And so it just feels sort of in the way. It feels more frustrating than fun. And so that those types of things are always great to put under the microscope and see what we can change there. Adrian also says, yeah, feels like an annoying chore every year. Exactly. Lady Nutsy sounds good to me. Salim says, perhaps make it just the Mouse of the Year gate and not the complete list. We were thinking about that as well, kind of open to alternative suggestions. But again, when we thought about, well, why is it not fun? Why does it feel frustrating? I think it was that revelation of, well, they aren't the focus of the event. The lantern is. And so I think any sort of gate toward even just starting the event, it feels just kind of like a barrier in the way and ultimately unfun. And that is the ultimate goal anyway, is to make something fun. Ryan says, yes, we can do away with that, but maybe the Mouse of the Year is fair if necessary. Yeah, but you know, we're thinking about, well, why is it necessary? Should it be necessary? And we couldn't think of any really good, compelling reasons of why you would go through that to get the lantern. Kind of doesn't make anything more interesting, doesn't add any sort of skill things to master, any strategy, doesn't add any agency, autonomy, doesn't add any sort of social element or anything. If anything, it's a frustrating social element, seeing you might have friends who have the lantern and you had some bad luck and you've only got one of the mice so far and you're like, well, what is going on here? Can we pick up the pace? I only got 2 weeks here. Poke says, bonus hunt for the Zodiac mice seem like the Valentine mice. They play a little different role in that they are where you get the candles, right? So I don't think they're quite as good of a fit for bonus hunts because they do have a distinct role in the kind of hierarchy and the progression of the event. Without them, you can't get candles. So they do have a purpose. They're just sort of at the lower rung of the ladder in terms of the hierarchy of progression of what you're doing. If it was Feroma, they're the student mice, and the raising the lantern, that's hunting the master of the dojo. They're kind of at the end of the progression. Ben says, I'd like to see a large kit for regular candles and dumpling. Red candles price points too high for general use. Yeah, that's a good suggestion as well. I'd imagine, especially if you're more aiming for luck. There's always kind of two sides of the event, an interesting choice to be had. Do you really try and utilize the double and triple loot bonuses, or do you try and utilize the luck bonus, or do you try to find somewhere where you're going to be able to get the best of both worlds, or some sort of middle ground there? But I would imagine, too, if you're looking to light a candle to keep the luck bonus going, that sounds like a good suggestion. Trevor asks, will all masks be available this year? Any that are non-limited edition? That is definitely the intention. So if we forget one, that would be a bug we would fix. That's a good segue into kind of another point there on the list, is we're workshopping one new collectible. Now we've finished the mask set. There is now a mask for each of the Zodiac mice there. So we are workshopping maybe a new theme to start. I know kind of even on previous Feedback Fridays, collectibles are in need of a bit of an overhaul, and so we're a little hesitant to add too many of them. But it's a fun tradition to carry forward, just with one, not to overdo it. But definitely, we don't want to add too many until we can sort of set aside some time to overhaul collectibles, arrange them in sets. When you look at collectibles, make it easier to figure out, well, where do I go to get that? Where did this one come from? Even myself, when I load up my collectibles tab, I kind of have no idea what's going on half the time. Like, wait, where does this come from? And when I look at the ones I'm missing, where do I get this? So there's a lot of kind of feedback missing, a lot of kind of polish. And over the years, I think it worked well when we had a few collectibles, but now with so many, it kind of needs to be redesigned. And the person designing it needs to kind of approach it as though, well, there could be thousands of collectibles eventually. So what should this look like on a larger scale than originally intended? Ryan says the issue is actually needing to catch the mice in order. If we could get them in any order, that would speed things up. Yeah, for sure. But again, kind of what is that adding? So we were looking at different variations of how you might catch these mice to get the lantern. But ultimately, we're trying to think, well, what are we trying to create? one thing of how the system could work isn't as important of what do you want the system to do. What kind of interesting gameplay do you want to create? Kind of starting with, well, what are you looking to create, and what system would best support that? And we couldn't really think of a kind of compelling thing we're looking to create with those mice, because the lantern is already so compelling and interesting that we landed on the mice should better enable that, better lift up the lantern and support that fun part, rather than compete for the fun part. KDJ says, I'm leaving Facebook. How will I play MouseHunt? Well, you can make a username and password to log in if you go to mousehuntgame.com. So you can play from there, from your browser, the mobile app as well. You don't need Facebook to sign in. Just make sure you've made a username and password. Make sure your email address is set to something that you use. In case you ever forget your password, you'll need your email to reset it. So, but then you can log in with a username and a password. Nathan says, perhaps we could have the Zodiac mice provide an extra 1 to 3 lantern height when caught instead. Oh, see, that's kind of an interesting suggestion. That kind of marries the two a little bit better, right? Kind of creates more synergy of where even if it's taking a while to get them, each one you get kind of helps you progress along the way. Turn them into a fun head start rather than an unfun barrier you have to break down. They're actually a tool to sort of accelerate. That's kind of an interesting suggestion. Chris says, Dave, will there be Lunar New Year maps? It'd be cool to have lantern height zones, each of which is a Lunar New Year mouse group, so it's easier to target as a team. There were maps last year, and I think as of the moment, we're looking to basically repeat those. Again, though, they play kind of a support role to the lantern. When you go out and you're using your luck bonus, or you're getting double and triple loot drops, you're not catching or hunting for the event mice themselves. So the map, I think where they fit best is they're a role to help boost your candle collection and your cheese collection a little bit. So if you have relics and you have friends who are looking to collect cheese and candles, doing a map is a way to get the cheese and candles a little bit quicker. Use your relics to help you collect the cheese and candles, but then you go out into the world. You go out to any area that you want to get double, triple loot drops or use that luck bonus, and so then you're not hunting event mice. So at that point, you might just want to do a regular event map, or area map, sorry. Whether you're in the floating islands, you might want to do a Sky Pirate map, or, if you're in Narnia, you might want to do a Narnia map, that sort of thing. I'm going to fit each end there. Trevor says, maybe each of the costume mice can drop their respective mask. Yeah, actually, we have a lot of sets going. That's an interesting suggestion, as well as to have a way of getting them, purpose them a little bit more as well. It's nice that you kind of only need the collectible once, so it's just something you'd ever do once. Mock says, red candles are a little too extra for general usage. Yeah, again, I had that comment earlier as well. That might be a good thing to look into as well, making a little more abundance of the regular candles, especially if you just want to use it for your luck bonus, or you don't quite want to triple it. There's some areas you definitely want to triple those loot drops, but other places, well, double is probably good enough. Ben says, a non-limited edition Jade Trap that gets a year-themed skin each year could be fun. Oh, that's a fun little reward as well, especially maybe something in the back pocket as we get ever so closer to completing the collection of Jade bases. We have been brainstorming some new things to put on the reward track as well. And kind of the starting point is what we did last year. New journal theme, new trap skin, and a new airship cosmetic. We're probably leaning towards the Chrome School of Sharks. That is by far one of the most popular traps at the moment. And it could certainly use some cool skins. Stooge says a custom Zodiac aura with each having a new special boost. That's an awfully fun visual, actually. I can almost imagine that kind of completing. That said, I think Lunar New Year has a bit of an aura identity already, with the lantern providing a luck bonus that kind of steps on the feet. There's a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram of lantern, luck bonus, and aura, right? So there kind of already is a trap bonus baked into it, so it might be sort of kind of a duplicate feeling, or it might be that kind of identity already exists in the event. Caleb asks, are Jade bases going to make a return in any form? I'd love to complete my set since wasn't playing for a few years. They are limited edition, and so limited edition items do not come back. That said, we're close to completing the set, and if we had a time machine, we probably wouldn't make them limited edition, so we'd have a little bit more freedom to use them in more creative ways, but at this point, yeah, they are kind of collectible bases. Chris says, how about a collectibles display shelf? Each showing which ones are missing, special place for LEs. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of that's the vision of eventually, if we can overhaul collectibles, help organize them a little bit better, put them into sets, add feedback. Yeah, when one's grayed out and you click it, it kind of, you can learn where it comes from, what purpose it serves, where do you go to get it. Even if it's meant to be a little bit of a mystery to solve, at least some hints to go and have a starting point that isn't just the wiki by default. Shay says, maybe the lantern is available by default. Mice drop candles from the start, but this year's mouse stole the lighter, so you have to catch it once you're able to light. Yeah, I think it's kind of the same mechanic themed in a different way, though. So we're trying to, like I said earlier, think about, well, what is the purpose, or what are we trying to create by having those mice to capture, or gating the lantern raising behind the mice? And we just couldn't think of a really compelling reason or anything fun around that. And so that's kind of why it's on the chopping block. Trevor says, similar to the spring egg hunt, where you had to catch all the factory egg to get the excavator. Should obtaining the lantern be given? Seems a little too much, though. Well, that was the comparison we made for sure. The spring egg hunt, you used to have to calibrate your excavator every year, and it just wasn't fun. And ultimately, the goal of a game is to be fun. So anytime that comes up, that goes under the microscope, and that's why calibrating your excavator was cut, and the event as a whole was better for it. It was definitely a lot more entertaining, less friction, and had more fun playing it. So I'll say the word fun a few more times, I think. I'm racking up how many times I say fun. Brad says, you remember when there was just one collectible, the Ronza burger with cheese, looking delicious in your inventory. Even though I was active when it came out, you never got one. The old Ronza burger, eh? I'm a big fan of Larry's sandwich as well, but maybe just have an appetite for certain collectibles. Shay says, crafting something with all 12 collectible masks would be neat. That's kind of fun, the Omni mask, one mask to rule them all here. Dallas says, I am still waiting to craft something with my Ronza burger. Well, I think collectibles, I don't think you can craft with collectibles, at least at the moment, so there's some technical challenges there. Can maybe craft up some heartburn, or I don't know what that burger's got in the store. Nathan says, could we have collectibles as decorations in our trap window? Yeah, absolutely as well. That's a great idea. That's definitely something in the kind of brainstorming sessions around what to do with collectibles, being able to show them off on the profile, better highlight them, pick your favorites. A little similar to how mice work. You can highlight your favorite king's crowns, give them a little bit more cosmetic flair. But it just kind of comes down to the time and having somebody sit down and actually do that work and figure that out. Unfortunately, it just has not been a priority in the at least immediate future. Trevor says, a skill tree might drop something you can use to either increase your skill or your luck. I think that came up during one of the feedback threads. We kind of chewed the fat on that a little bit. I think ultimately we landed on the short nature of the event kind of makes something like that not a great fit. And we're thinking maybe that's a really fun idea, but maybe it's better applied for a permanent area where you're building these upgrades. I mean, there's areas kind of like that. Fort Rocks, you build permanent unlockable upgrades. Valor Rift even as well, you're kind of building these permanent upgrades that help you in that area. The idea of a skill tree, though, where you're making choices and you have to kind of choose which way you want to go, and there's kind of some trade-offs and some compromises depending on what you pick. That sounds interesting as a kind of large idea, but probably something better served as permanent content, or at least a longer event, because by the time everyone figure out and learn what they want to do, kind of how they want to build that skill tree, the event's almost over, and it's like, oh, I wish I did it differently. So it didn't feel like a great fit for a kind of short, sweet, but also very rewarding, powerful event like Lunar New Year. Brad says the Zodiac Aura could be something earned that can only be activated after the event as a bonus. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the other events have that though as well, so it's kind of nice each event has its own identity. And I guess just the question of, is Lunar New Year event, does it have an interesting and compelling reward structure already? Does it need even more rewards kind of crammed into it? And we kind of had a hard time finding a spot to even put more as we were brainstorming and seeing, okay, where can we fit this idea, that idea? A lot of times we kind of went back, well, we're just adding this for the sake of adding something, or does it actually kind of need it? And so There's a lot of kind of discussion back and forth of just, you know, how much extra does it need, or is that maybe better served? Well, you know, there could be another event that can benefit from that reward, or even just a permanent area that benefits from having that reward associated with it. Gonzi says, have I missed something on why Lunar New Year is being discussed before Great Winter Hunt? I'm getting more excited for Great Winter Hunt. Seems like you have a big surprise. Well, because we're putting together Lunar New Year, so our development cycle is, you know, for obvious reasons, ahead of the release cycle. So Great Winter Hunt, though, is coming along well. Today is actually the due date for Great Winter Hunt, so we're wrapping up a lot of final loose ends, putting the finishing touches on things, getting ready to start kind of play testing and you know, the QA process, making sure everything is good to go. So it's starting to go into the rear view mirror, at least in terms of development effort, which obviously, you know, we build it before it gets played. And so, hey, we're in the middle of building Lunar. Well, not the middle, but we're in the process of building Lunar New Year. So it's a great time to get feedback, suggestions, even temperature check on a few things. See what kind of discussions come up in groups, Discord, that sort of thing. Help us make final decisions, or as we kind of polish, that kind of help guide direction, having even just some vocal feedback in the back of our minds. Good food for thought as well, to kind of maybe spark interesting conversations on the team. John says, will jewels be doubled or tripled from floating islands, or will just Sky or Skyglass pirate cheese? There are not too many restrictions on what works with the lantern, and jewels will definitely be doubled and tripled. I'm trying to recall, I don't think mice drop jewels outside the Sky Palace, and the Sky Palace was not released for Lunar New Year, but the Empress, she does have a chance to drop a jewel, and if you catch her with a red lantern going, you will get 3 jewels instead of 1 jewel. The Cloudstone shards, which are technically little tiny pieces of a jewel, they all work with the lantern as well. So floating islands definitely is one of the more potent areas you might want to hunt in, because the mechanics of that area already involve doubling loot drops, right? As you discover new caches on the islands or in the vaults, it doubles your drop, and then it doubles your drop. This all kind of works on top of that. So it's actually it's a pretty good candidate, and it synergizes awfully well with Lunar New Year. The troves as well. Hunting Richard is kind of nice. You can get multiple troves, crack those open, get a whole lot of bottled wind. Ryan says, the most important question for Great Winter Hunt, will we have mini bellets? Yes, so that is looking all good. Obviously, it's the due date today, so you'd certainly hope that was already set in stone. But yes, so the summoning bells are being kind of pivoted into jingle bells, and you will use 25 bells to bring back a golem, and they'll be 25 times more abundant. So you can kind of think exact same thing, but a little bit more granularity. If you come back and there's only 1 or 2 hunts left on your golem, you can just use these kind of mini jingle bells. Use 2 of them to bring back a golem if it has 2 hunts left. Kind of obviously a lot of inspiration from the Halloween event, so kind of took that little part that worked really well, and certainly had a lot of great feedback from the Halloween event, and applying that to the winter hunt. So that'll be exciting for sure. It's kind of neat digging in as well. We were keeping track of when did people use reagent on their brews for Halloween. By far the most popular one was 15 hunts, but second place was 1 hunt. So it was interesting. And like 9, 10, they were way down on the list. Not a lot of people used reagent when they had like 9, 10, 11 hunts. And the usage at 15 obviously spiked during shutdown phase for obvious reasons, but even just while the event was going. So it kind of painted a picture. A lot of people want to kind of use a mechanic like that, or a power-up that works in that way, either right away when they build their golem, they're going to want it to come back right away because they have enough parts to get going, or they come back and there's like 1 hunt left, you're about to go to bed, and you're like, do I stay up for another 15 minutes? No, I can just use 1 bell, bring it back, no friction there, and I can set up my next golem and then go back. So it even kind of helps with more passive play. It'll just make it more fun. So Brad says, so you could get a times 48 drop with a red lantern. I'd have to double check. I don't want to misspeak about the order of operations. I forget which bonus gets added in which order. Specifically, well, I guess the order that you're doing multiplication in doesn't really matter. So maybe I'm not doing a good job thinking on the spot. Actually, I forgot. I was going to add a few screenshots of some journals. Maybe I can do that live. We'll see here. While play testing, I grabbed a couple. We'll see if this backfires. We'll do it live. Let me see. What can we got? Do we got... tell you what. We'll take away that lovely text. And we'll put Richard. What is this? Text for ants? Let's make that a little bigger. And the Empress as well. These were kind of two exciting drops I got while I was testing a little bit this morning for sure. So, you know, I forget the exact state of the island. You could probably reverse engineer the math a little bit there. I won't tempt fate by trying to do that on the spot though. But, you know, if you haven't played Lunar New Year before, the bonus loot appears in a journal below it. Obviously, this is last year's journal. That's why there's an ox there, but that will be updated to be a tiger instead, and it kind of itemizes everything you had. I was using a red candle, so I was getting triple loot drops. So there's me capturing an Empress, and she dropped an adorned Empyrean jewel, and sure enough, there's two more in there. She dropped relics. I got two more relics. The Codex pages as well. That's actually a good mental note because those have a cap of 8 to figure out what happens there. I'm pretty sure we fixed that many years ago, though. So if you're at 7, I think she would not drop any extra in the lantern. But that's actually a good mental note to make sure that isn't broken. Ryan says Dream Can True can actually sleep in peace now. Yeah, I think that was one of the takeaways. It helps make it more passive. We were thinking about, well, what if you could queue a golem? But this kind of helps make it more passive to begin with as well. So it's kind of a good step in the right direction. Alex says, oof, too many typos. You need your coffee. I missed oh, message redacted. I guess you took yours out. Shay was the operation name. Script Dev, if we have bells left, can we smash them into jingle bells? Absolutely, Scrib. You'll be able to smash them into jingle bells. Jonathan says off topic, but if the question came up, Dragonbane charms of any variety work against the Empyrean Javelineer? The obvious answer seems to be that it should, but it's not specifically mentioned. I think, you know, you put me on the spot. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I thought the description of the charm does mention groups and subgroups of mice. It doesn't. I think that's been massaged once or twice. So, I mean, it should work if it's a dragon-type mouse. Matt says, hey, Dave, any idea as to what happened with last week's Feedback Friday? Jacob was doing a live illustration, and I think he was having internet problems in the afternoon, and that even made it challenging to come back and kind of wrap things up. He was unable to stream, so there's a little bit of an impromptu finish, I believe anyway. That was kind of what he mentioned this week on Monday when the whole team was chatting. So apologies for that. I think he's having some internet issues. Couldn't quite get the stream up and running. I think he dropped a line in the chat though to say like, hey, fortunately I got a jet, I'm pretty sure. So Alex says 192 seals is possible per hunt. Is that the max? Jonathan says the trap effectiveness does not change when Dragonbane charmed us, so maybe it was overlooked. Yeah, I can jot down a quick little note to double check. Setting a reminder. Boy, that's a lot of typos in my reminder. I'm leaving them. Just so I'll have a chuckle. There you go. Oops. Let's actually set the reminder. There we go. Sorry you didn't quite get that. Hey, all right. Reminder set. I'll check that out. So, if that is a bug, then I'll log a bug report if it's not working. But I'd have to set up and kind of see if that's working or not. Get my hands dirty. Richard, you have ×8 plus wind. You still need codex pages in this environment. I did. I think this was a fresh account. And just fresh to the floating islands there. Built a rocket booster and pretty well off I went. So this was not in a live game. Obviously, there is no Lunar New Year, so this is in a test environment. Did it continue elsewhere? Did it just stop altogether? Yeah, the stream, I think he wrapped things up. He had to wrap things up early, so it was just kind of stream over at that point. It was kind of a half stream that day because his internet wasn't cooperating, so he was unable to keep streaming. Scrib, you can't wait to get smashing? You had me nervous just to make sure. I'm going to set a reminder about that too. Maybe we need Franco. I don't know. Is Franco around? Are you watching, Franco? You can jump in if you want, but maybe he's not watching. But I'll make a note. I will make sure. We'll jot that down as well. We'll make darn sure you can smash the bells. That is the intention, but I'm not kind of directly working on the winter hunt, so I don't want to misspeak. But in case that was an oversight, but we'll make sure it isn't an oversight. Alex says, please check my math. Haven't had my coffee. Four Seal and Sky Palace. Empyrean Appraiser gives 32 plus 32. Alex, I'm not going to do it either. I mean, I have had coffee, but I feel like multitasking, the IQ begins to drop and my ability to do math drops. And so reading chat, speaking, you know, I'm amazed I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'd have to sit down. I'm the type of person, I'd be on the whiteboard just making sure, you know, I'm using my fingers and toes to count sometimes. Matt says, well, darn it, you joined 30 minutes late. Well, better late than never. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Hope you're having a great day. Snowy wants to ask, the Prestige base will not have bug again later. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I mean, there was a little bit of a mix-up and the bonus was being doubled, and ultimately we decided to adopt the bug as working as intended. So the Prestige base is indeed a mighty base. But I mean that for all intents and purposes, those are the stats of the Prestige base now. KDM asks, will the costume tiger be redrawn? Yes, that is currently in the cards, assuming there is time for that. I think Jacob had an appetite to incorporate some water elements. I believe that's the element this year. So we're looking to repaint the costume tiger. It's also it's also an older illustration, kind of due for a redraw as well. Kind of in the backlog as well, and in the idea bank, we do want to have a way to look at all the old artwork for some of these redraws for both traps, bases, mice. Just again, kind of it's a difficult thing. We haven't been able to prioritize it yet, but that is in the idea bank as well. Those images are out there. Maybe document that on the wiki editor. Maybe can document that in the intern to kind of help us and the community out until we can make that an official part of the game. Nathan says, I think Lunar New Year being so short is also what makes consumed mice painful. Yeah, fair enough. You know, it's definitely a short event. It's a very potent event as well, which is kind of why it's so short as well. Scrib asks, is the random reward fortune a sure thing for Lunar New Year? We have been discussing that a little bit. It's not a for sure thing. So there was an idea posted to have some sort of fortune, a fortune stick or a cookie or some sort of item where you can utilize it and it kind of tells you your fortune for the year, and maybe you just get a little stat bonus, just more for fun, not as a significant game-changing stat bonus. I think we're going to explore it a little bit during development. We're going to see how much time we have. It needs a little bit more fleshing out and kind of vetting to make sure it's going to work, as well as the development scope. If it's going to be something that isn't too impactful in the game but requires like weeks of development and testing, that's kind of, you know, maybe there's a better use of our time. Maybe we work on some other kind of optimizations, quality of life, or bug fixes, stuff like that. So it's still chilling out. I think it's kind of in the nice to have category of the design document, not exactly the must build it category. So we're going to see how that plays out. But welcome feedback on that idea. Even just kind of what items associated with celebration of Lunar New Year's might fit that theme best, to make sure we pick an item that is sort of appropriate to the celebration of Lunar New Year as well. Wilson says, just a suggestion for the 3 times loot journal entry. Would it be better to group loots together? For example, 34 core said instead of 17. I think we've had this discussion in years past, open to kind of feedback suggestions there of what players would ultimately like to see most. I think maybe the rationale there was to kind of make it painfully clear that like that's the triple going off. You see the name of the item 3 times, and you have to do less math to know or get feedback on is the triple working. I got 3 of something, and then the journal entry said 6. 3 plus 6 is 9, divided by 3 is 3. Yes, it tripled. When the numbers get big and weird, sometimes it's nice to see like, oh, I got 17, 17, 17. I rolled a 17 3 times. It's the difference where you're rolling 2 dice and you see the 6 on both dice rather than rolling a 12-sided die. There's probably pros and cons to each way, though. It's definitely getting to be a tall entry. These two mice drop quite a bit of stuff all at once, and there's probably mice that drop even more loot all at once that you could find out there. You definitely be scrolling for days in that journal, but if anything, hey, that makes it a very exciting journal entry when it is when it's so big. Oh, what did this mouse drop? Matt asks, Dave, did you talk any about Great Winter Hunt in the first 30 minutes? If so, you'll go back and watch. Don't want to re-explain something if you already did. I think we touched on it a little bit here and there. Today's the due date of Great Winter Hunt, so it's just about wrapped up. That's why we're getting feedback on Lunar New Year, looking ahead to that a little bit. But yeah, it's the Golem event. A lot of what you can expect. I think probably the most significant change in the Golem event is instead of a festive summoning bell, there are jingle bells. I think that was the name pending final copy editing. And basically you get 25 of those instead of one of those, so you can bring a golem back when it has just a few hunts left and use a few bells rather than one big bell. It's many little bells. So, and rest assured the economy of everything now has been adjusted, so 25 jingle bells are equivalent to one festive summoning bell. I'm probably referring to them the wrong name. The working name was jingle bells, but I don't know what made the final cut, and often we do our final copy editing naming things towards QA as well, as we kind of everything's all together. Sometimes a name looks out of place, so stuff often changes while we're play testing, so, but there's something to that effect anyway. Scrib says, oh yes please, you had to hunt down the goofy old gray mouse art. It was adorable. Love looking at old art and seeing the game has come from as a newer player. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, for sure. And we could help out too if there's a wiki editor looking to kind of add those document those illustrations. We could probably track those down. Unless they're really old art, a lot of it is in our source control system, so we can track that down in some way, shape, or form. Stat bonus of plus 10 power. Yeah, Alex, something like that for that fortune item. It's like this year will be a powerful one for you, and you get plus 10 power. Nothing game changing, just more put a smile on your face, just for a little bit of fun, a novelty thing. So, but it comes down to kind of how much development time is needed there, and just how much we can flesh it out. Kind of needs some more design iteration to get it into a good place, and ultimately if we have time to do it or not. Ryan says that could be an alternative pathway for making costume mice relevant. Let's face it, 10 extra luck isn't too bad, considering you're throwing 50 extra around. If they played into the lantern, that might be another approach there. Kind of, again, our sort of takeaway was they're the supporting cast to the lantern. So whatever they do, it has to kind of enhance and make the lantern better and more fun. They need to be these sprinkles on top of your sundae there. They shouldn't be kind of the bowl holding up the sundae. I don't know if that metaphor makes any sense. I'm going to be second guessing that one later. Jonathan says Monstrous Black Widow drops a ton of stuff. She has quite the extensive drop table. I don't know if she drops a lot of items all at once, though. Does she? It's been a while since I've hunted the Monstrous Black Widow. Matthew restarted last week after Jacob's Feedback Friday issue. Today you're at Grandmaster 27%. That's awfully good. Alex says you're about to bring up the annual Monstrous Black Widow Extinction event. Yes, she's a popular one. Definitely helps you sustain your taunting charms. Math says MouseHunt all the way from scratch with Larry. Sano, wait. So we can just use 2 times candles in place, 2 times troves. Yeah, absolutely. It works with those items. We don't really have any intention to add any new restrictions. So when your candle's lit, you get 2 troves, and if your red candle's lit, you get 3 troves, because Richard drops a trove. Alex says, assuming you're hunting in a 2, 3, and 4 loot cache palace, the one that comes from 3 Island will not be doubled. Don't know if I quite follow you. That is a distinction, though. Maybe what you're getting at is the mouse has to drop it as loot. So anything that you receive as a reward, like for fully exploring an island, you claim a trove from the heads-up display. It is not dropped as a loot drop. That is not subject to the candle. So you need to find mice that actually drop them. And right in the journal where it says the mouse also dropped the following loot, has to be an item in there. There are a few exemptions. I think treasure map clues, because they're kind of special. I believe they don't get doubled, if I recall correctly. There might be a few other kind of like adventure-themed items that don't, but for the most part, it's pretty wide open. Matt asks, is a HUD upgrade overhaul in the plans for the tribal islands? Sort of how Narnia area's got to face this? Absolutely. Kind of the long-term goal is a HUD in every area. We're kind of starting at the beginning of the game and working our way forward, especially because it's something that helps out new players experiencing that for the first time. And so, it's always a kind of a little bit of a back and forth trying to figure out, well, does it make sense to help more people be able to get through the laboratory, and so more people end up at the tribal isles, and maybe some people kind of get a little bit lost at the tribal isles, but because there are more people made it there, more people get through, versus fewer people get there, but more people get through, if that makes sense. Like I said, the long term, obviously, we want a HUD everywhere, but just trying to think through the logic of what to prioritize, because we can only, we only have so much time to do so much. So, trying to think, okay, where are we going to help the most people possible? But it's often a back and forth experience to figure out what to prioritize. Jonathan says a monstrous Black Widow catch. Got bolts of cloth. Rift Ultimate Luck Charms, Rift Ultimate Power Charms, Super Brie. Somebody has an aura going, I think. Widow's Web, Divine Orbs, Rift Cherries, Rift Torn Roots, Sap-Filled Thorns, and an Ancient Relic. That will be a mighty tall journal entry during Lunar New Year, indeed. Queso Geyser loot will not be doubled. That is correct, GS. So anything that is not dropped by the mouse. So that loot goes into the nest where it is too dangerous to loot it until the eruption has subsided. The mice don't actually drop the loot. So Queso Geyser will not work with Lunar New Year. Outside of anything, there might be one or two exceptions where a mouse may actually drop an item, especially if you have an aura going or something, or a special base. Sometimes they add things, and they may or may not work depending on if it adds it as a loot drop to the mouse or not. Similar, there are, like, let's say a trawling charm. Pretty sure that those add the loot in a bonus journal entry. I think. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But any sort of special trap effect that adds it as a bonus journal entry, for sure they will not work because the mouse didn't drop it. Kind of the item gave it to you. And then it's kind of a little bit of a laundry list to whether some special effects that add loot to mice get affected as well. So that's a little bit of a case-by-case basis, but I think quite a few of them work anyway. Matt, awesome. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate all the effort. Hey, absolutely. Matt says, any new rifts coming up anytime soon? None planned for the immediate future. We are kind of starting up. Norman on the team's been doing a lot of prototyping, storyboarding for a new piece of episodic content, a new adventure for the game that we'll be starting concept art on pretty soon. So it's starting to take shape, but it is not a rift. Gonzi says, not event related, but have you considered adding a mob themed permanent area? As in kind of like a mobster themed area. But yes and no. There was a prelude originally to the Floating Islands was going to be sort of a city that was overrun by crime, and you're trying to clean it up a little bit. But it didn't quite flesh out too well. Ultimately, we kind of prototyped it, and it was very unfun to play, and so we did not make it. I tried, though. I think I prototyped 4 different versions of that before I decided, no matter how you slice this game mechanic is completely unfun and not interesting. All right, I'm laying it to bed. Script says, your mom picked up the game a while ago and now got stuck and confused around Tribal Isles' crafting system kind of bamboozled her, gave up. Hopefully a HUD update will fix that. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a common story as well. And we're getting there. We are working on a shops overhaul. That's kind of somewhat related. Maybe we can preview that on another Feedback Friday. But just, you may notice on more modern areas, often we utilize the shops a lot more than crafting for some things that are very area specific, very tightly tied to an area. Because it is just so much easier to discover. You can go and see it in the shop. You remember how much it costs. So we are working on bringing at least some traps are pretty straightforward. The cheese is, I think, going to have to wait a little bit. Where some of the crafted traps are going to be moved into trapsmiths. And so you'll be able to buy the trap from the trapsmith using the items that you would craft it with. But we have to kind of go through a case-by-case basis. That'll certainly help, as well as stocking just more shops. One of the design objectives of that project is to kind of make it where you don't need to remember where to go to buy stuff as much. Or if you're hunting in a location and there's something you might want to buy, it's sold in that location. So even something as simple as making sure every area in the game is going to have a cheese shop as part of that project. So if you need some Swiss cheese for whatever reason, you don't need to remember, well, where sells Swiss cheese? Now that there's so many areas in the game, that's becoming a harder and harder ask. So it's just makes sense. It should just be kind of a global thing, a little bit curated. Kind of some subjective stuff, like the floating islands isn't going to sell cheddar, because odds are you probably aren't looking for cheddar there. So there's still a little bit of a changing of inventories and stuff, but it's still a big work in progress, but we're making headway there. But all that to say, the tribal isles long term, we'd even like to see some of things like gumbo cheese just sold in the cheese shop, and you buy it using savory vegetables, and there's a version you buy with savory vegetables and magic essence to get a larger pack. We do need a little bit of a technical overhaul because some of the areas in the game where you buy more than one thing at once from the shop, well, those are not implemented in exactly the most sustainable, intuitive way. So there's some technical limitations before we can really open that up, which we got to kind of resolve those first. Whew! Tangent. I need a sip of water. I'm losing my voice. Zay says, Warmonger loot double. Yeah, I mean, basically almost everything. If the mouse drops it as loot, you can double or triple it, and the Warmonger drops it as loot. So it'll be good to go. Yep, Jonathan, Dave is correct. Bonus entry loot is not double triple. Yeah, that's correct. So anything that adds the loot as an additional bonus journal entry. So, there's some charms that work that way. There's some traps that work that way. Like I tried to pull I think the trawling charm. I haven't used one in a while, but I'm pretty sure it adds a bonus entry. Bert Skin asks, didn't the Empyrean Empress drop 10 storm cells at first? No, the Paragons drop 10. As far as I'm aware, I don't believe there's any way to get storm cells while you're inside the palace, so you cannot replenish your storm cells. That said, the pirate mice, if you hunt pirate mice in the Sky Palace, well, that might be a feasible way to restock your pirate cheese, and pirates are pretty darn good for storm cells, so you can kind of replenish them, but you still have to go and find them as loot drops outside. Scripta says she's pretty old to be fair, but maybe MouseHunt isn't for her, coming up to 70 now. I think it's a game for all ages, if you ask me. You're as old as you feel. Joshua says mob-themed area could be cool, maybe Vegas-esque, yeah. Caleb says, hey, cheddar is the best cheese in floating islands. Don't cheese shame me, eh? Yeah, Caleb, even kind of, you may have noticed we increased the attraction rate of a lot of cheese across the board, and even kind of long term where we're looking to get, may or may not get there, is just removing that entirely, where all cheese will have 100% attraction rate, and the choice of cheese will be more pertinent to what types of mice you encounter. So basically shifting away from negative reinforcement into positive reinforcement. If you use the right cheese, you get really good mice. If you're using weaker cheese, you don't get as good mice, as opposed to if you don't use good cheese, you just kind of waste your time and fail. Just rather when you win, you really win, versus when you don't win, you lose, if that makes sense. I don't think it made any sense, actually. Also, while we're talking about random area ideas, deck of cards based one gets kicked around on Discord. Yeah, that gets kicked around on the team every once in a while. Actually, before Fort Rocks, that expansion was going to have a card house where you're kind of playing a game of cards a little bit, and there was going to be a brewery where you're making root beer, different flavors of root beer cheese, and you take that into the card house. But ultimately, it kind of hit the chopping room floor, and Queso Canyon was produced instead. So every once in a while, that kicks up as well. I know Franco's a huge fan of something called chip cheese. Like I want like a little a chip, like a poker chip, but it's chip cheese or something. But plus two, kind of, I don't know, gambling themed area seems a little bit maybe off brand as well, so we shy away from that a little. Script Dev says you find areas that have the ability to craft the craftable cheese from the HUD the best setup for craftable cheese. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why every kind of modern area we incorporate all that stuff right into the HUD. It's a lot easier to discover, easier to use. Just some old areas need updating. Yeah, we need the time to update them. Say asks for an estimated start of the Great Winter Hunt. I think we're in good enough shape. I'm not on my work laptop, actually, and I'm notoriously bad with calendars. Let me open it up. I don't even think we need to estimate at this point unless something horrible blows up. Unless there's some unforeseen challenge here. The Great Winter Hunt is slated to begin on December 7. So like I said, the due date is today. We're looking in pretty good shape. We're going to start our QA play testing, more focused where, hey, pencils down, don't create anything new, just make what's there better, fix any bugs, that sort of thing. So we're firing that up starting next week, so it's almost there. Alex says, I bet December 7, yeah. If you kind of look at last year's timelines, that definitely is consistent. Matt says, I always love the spellbook base, but it's never useful compared to other in-game bases, very hard to get. Would be giving bonus arcane traps to give some use. That's an interesting idea. Actually, to touch on a bit of that shops overhaul we're looking at is also, it's kind of forced us to do an audit of every single piece of equipment in the game. Cheese, bases, traps, even charms. Charms, the scope got a little big when we sat down, so we're going to come back and we're going to like just focus only on charms because there's so many. But part of that too is adjusting some of the stats of different pieces of equipment, adjusting some of the costs as well. A lot of it is really dated. There was a point in time where we thought the mouse death bot, that's it, that's the last trap in the game. And then we thought, okay, at some point, the mausoleum, that was going to be the end game. I can remember the dragon mouse, feeling pretty confident. Okay, game over. No, barely anyone's ever going to get it to the dragon mouse. That's going to be the end of the game. And that's even why the Tribal Isles is kind of big and complex, because it was meant to be the end game. And that's it. You beat MouseHunt if you got the dragon mouse. And boy, were we wrong. People kept playing. And so it was probably sometime around the Labyrinth where the mentality shift of like, no, this game is going to go forever. Or at least we have to design it assuming that there will be no end to these areas in sight. And so some of the upgrade curves got really changed around that point. Some stuff in the beginning of the game is just expensive because, well, at the time that was going to be the final stretch goal, the ultimate thing, the bragging rights, like Deathbot, like 5 people have that. Who's ever going to get that far? And so a lot of things are just too expensive or not powerful enough for that point of the game. So we're definitely overhauling that. It's a work in progress. There's a lot of work to do there. But even things like the drill bot, lowering its cost, making it a little bit easier to get, really doesn't need to be that hard. You put in all that effort and then there isn't really a good physical area outside maybe the bazaar. There might be an argument for a long time. So why would you go get it? So we're starting to adjust a little bit of that. We're hoping sometime early next year that'll be all ready to go. But, you know, it's a big job. We're auditing every single piece of equipment in that game. So there are some spreadsheets being thrown around. Eileen, your mom was playing into her 80s until her memory started to fail. I'm sorry to hear that, but glad she enjoyed the game for so long as well. Final Heart. Oh, will old tourneys be back for Great Winter Hunt? Lots of items, animated snow, relied on that in the past. We've tried to just kind of buff the event a little bit to kind of compensate for tournaments there, but unfortunately, tournaments are kind of a bit of a dying feature at the moment anyway. They need some attention. They're in quite a critical state. But unfortunately, we spent some time to look, how can we triage, or spend some time triaging, I guess, to try to figure out, okay, how can we get this up and running again? We couldn't find a silver bullet or a kind of an answer that didn't involve, 6 weeks and a team. So that's just very difficult to kind of fit it into the roadmap. To kind of put a team of people on something for a half a year is just, as you can imagine, that's a challenge. And so it's a point of stress for us as well. And at this point, we don't even know really when we can devote that type of attention to the tournament system. So for all intents and purposes, right now they kind of are offered as is, but we are unfortunately able to kind of add any more special or fun-looking tournaments. At this point, it might be kind of the next iteration of the game before they can be brought back to life. Just they were coded quite a while ago, and when we were not as good at programming, and oh boy, our past selves are sabotaging our present selves right now, and so. It's a good sign, though. At least, the silver lining means we've gotten better at what we do over the years. You would hope no matter what you work on, no matter what hobby you have, no matter what your profession, if you look back on something you created 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that you've like, ooh, I'm better at that now than I was then, that's a good sign. As demoralizing as it can be, you got to think about it in the positive light. That means, well, look how far you've come. So. But then that presents the very tangible, challenging problem of, well, how do we go about fitting and fixing that? But it's a work in progress. Ryan says, barely anyone gets to the dragon. How that aged well. Yeah, exactly. So the mentality definitely shifted. Well, on that note, how long have we been live? 56 minutes. Oh boy, it's almost noon, and I have a call at 1. We better wrap things up here, but we'll get to the trivia, as always, And it's always 50-50 if I've remembered to hit in the answer or not. We're about to see. I could preview it, but I'm feeling dangerous. Let's just go for it. Hey, I did hide it. All right. This week's trivia question is, and you got to almost look for the question in there. It's worded a bit weirdly. I don't think I finished my coffee. MouseHunt now has 12 Zodiac mice, but there are only 10 Zodiac Jade bases. Which Zodiac Jade bases are currently missing? So we kind of touched on this earlier. Someone in the chat was talking about the Jade bases as well. And I think right off the bat, no, Alex, swing and a miss. You were halfway there. Kame, you got the answer correct. I believe anyway, the Tiger and the Rabbit base are missing. So this upcoming year is the year of the Tiger. So that will add the Tiger Jade base. But we still don't have the Rabbit. And so a little bit of history there. The very first Lunar New Year event ever was nothing to do with lanterns. It was called Heart of the Tiger. But there was no Jade base. And then I don't know what we themed the Rabbit one after that, but we did not do a Rabbit Jade base. It wasn't until the following year, I don't know what Zodiac animal that was, where we started to do the Jade bases. So we finished the set of mice before we finished the set of bases. We finished the set of masks before we finished the set of bases. So hey, we got 2 years to go before we can finish that little collectible thing. And then I think it's a pretty safe bet that I don't think we'd go down the road of limited edition and whatever we do next. It would probably be something a little bit more open than that. But the answer indeed was Tiger and the Rabbit Jade base. Hey, look, I know what I'm doing. Imagine that. I remembered the answer. I'll put that reward link in the chat as well, if I can find it where I'm logged in. There we go. There is the reward link in the chat as well to claim. Will the Jade base have Eye of the Tiger, though, Scrib? You'll have to just play that song in the back here. For copyright purposes, that song will not play when you arm that base, but you can definitely load up a YouTube video and listen to that while you have that base armed. It'll at least improve your catch rate by at least 5%, you know. Sylvester Stallone will be kind of throwing some punches with your base. Rabbit year was the plain Jade base. All right, well, there you go. Tarako coming in with a little bit of MouseHunt trivia there. MouseHunt history. That the year of the Rabbit was the year we first introduced the plain Jade base, and then that must have provided inspiration to carve it the following year. Thanks for the dumplings. Reward link is Facebook only. Yes, indeed. And that also is in the idea bank to kind of overhaul that to allow that easier to claim on mobile, easier to claim on mousehuntgame.com. But for the time being, when you click the link, you will have to be logged into Facebook, or you will have to leverage the kind services of the Discord server, or there is a forum thread. I don't think it's been updated. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where somebody will convert that link into something that'll work there. But unfortunately, there's some technical challenges around streamlining that into the game. So kind of someone needs to sit down, but it is in the pipeline, and it's not a largest scope problem. So I'm hoping somebody can pick that up in the not too distant future. But that said, there's a lot of things to do. No Great Winter Hunt cheese. You know what? Maybe it should have been Great Winter Hunt cheese. Fair enough, ScribDev. But let me see. December 7 is when the Great Winter Hunt goes live. Will there be another Feedback Friday? Let me look at a calendar because I am bad with dates. Yes, if all goes according to plan, you'll probably, I think you're going to need to have me. So it'll probably be Jacob next week on the 26th, unless something comes up. And then Jacob is off on Friday the 3rd, so that will most likely be me. That would be the tentative plan. So maybe on December 3, we can kind of slot in a little bit of a Great Winter Hunt prelude, prologue, sneak peek. We can do a little demo. We can do a little festive hunting. That said, a lot of it is similar to the golems of past. But maybe we can do a little Great Winter Hunt themed Feedback Friday, and I'll try to remember to nudge Larry into giving some Winter Hunt cheese. Abir says the forum thread is updated. Thank you. Thank you for the kind services and letting me know that is updated. Fantastic. Matt asks, Dave, does Canada celebrate a holiday similar to Thanksgiving in the U.S.? Yes, we do. In October, it's Thanksgiving as well. And I think it's earlier in Canada. The colder climate, Thanksgiving is about celebrating the harvest, right? And it's a colder climate. Typically, you'd harvest a lot sooner in a colder climate because winter comes sooner. If you wait too long, then your crop's dead. So because the harvest would be a lot sooner in the northern tip out here of, not northern tip, but up north here. So we celebrate Thanksgiving earlier than our friends to the south in the States. Scribdev says, hooray. Well, I got a skedaddle. Catch you later, Dave. Hey, thanks for popping by, Scribdev. Have a great day. Diamond says, think their Thanksgiving is in October. That is correct, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to those in the U.S. this week. Yeah, likewise for me as well. Happy Thanksgiving. Augustine says, will I be losing out if this is your first great winter hunt? No, absolutely not. Actually, it's a great time. Maybe you tune in. We'll do a little bit more of a preview on the 3rd if all goes according to plan. But it's a great time to get a little bit of an extra boost in an area that you're looking to either get a little extra reward out of, or maybe there's an area you're looking to complete the adventure a little bit quicker. Golems are great for that. In terms of preparation, I would say just unlock. The only restriction is you need to have access to that area and the title to hunt there to utilize a golem for that area. So you may want to focus on unlocking map pieces, upping your hunter's title a little bit. And there's definitely some places that it helps out anywhere. You can pick anywhere you want to send your golem. They come back with goodies for that area. So it's very loot focused event is the identity of it. Those golems are big old tasty loot pinatas to smash open and enjoy the contents thereof. All right, on that note, I should wrap things up here. I'm going to take a quick lunch break, and then I have a call at 1 to sort some things out. So I should skedaddle as well, much like Scribdev. Thank you for joining me, hunters. Thanks for all the feedback, the suggestions, peace of mind. Set a couple reminders, took a few notes here as well for both Lunar New Year and Winter Hunt. So that's been a productive one. Have a fantastic day, afternoon, evening, weekend ahead of you. It's Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend. If you are in a chilly climate like we are, keep warm. I think I'm going to be hiding from some rain and some snow on the weekend potentially, or maybe Mother Nature will be nice and it'll just be a sunny day. Who knows? But have a fantastic one, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Happy hunting, and I'll see you next time.
2.
You're a trap, don't seem to mind it. You attract me, I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry, oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns out